I'm very much aware that this is my third act and maybe my last act and maybe my last role. And I remember going into studying this craft very seriously, and it was almost like a religious feeling to me. Just this little kid came jumping out of my body, running around the room, and I hadn't felt that in a long time.
Who are you?
Madeline Matlock. Yeah, it's like the old TV show.
Working for...
You, hopefully.
The show is teaching me that it's okay to trust again. I have had some experiences in the last few years that have left me feeling frustrated with the business and frustrated with getting older and frustrated with what does my future hold and is there anything left for me? I survived cancer twice, and so when this came along, I got the script on a Friday, and Kaitlyn and I literally had one foot out the door. I just thought, I'm not sure that I want to continue doing this, and I got the script that Friday, and on Monday I said yes to Jenny Snyder-Urman, who created our show based, of course, on the original. And when I went in to sit down with her, I said, please don't change a word. And then she said, is there anything you don't like? And I said, please don't leave me. Don't abandon me. Because that's what so often happens. I know producers get really busy, they're doing other projects or whatever. But one of the great pleasures I've had doing this show is that she's right there. And I know she's incredibly busy, and I always say she's the real Mattie Matlock, because she's got so many plates in the air in terms of, I remember when she was going through the writer's strike, I was totally ignorant about it, and I said, well, can't you write at home? She said, no, but I can think. And boy, she does. And I just admire her so. Sometimes I think she's in our heads listening to what we've been thinking about or dealing with in our lives. And I know other cast members feel the same thing, that her perception and her wisdom, her passion. I didn't watch Jane the Virgin, so I don't know that show well. But she's revived my trust in people keeping their word, and people that have integrity in this business. And she's just full of love. I remember when I first started directing years ago, and it's been years since I've been behind the camera. But when I was first had the opportunity was when I was working with Mike Nichols. And I said, Mike, I've always been taught as an actor, you never tell another actor what to do. So what do I do now? And he said, just love them. And that's what she does. I mean, there's just so much love and respect coming from her. And so it's restored my faith. It's restored my trust. And it's made me want to give my very best again. No matter what happens with the show, no matter if we are the success we think we're going to be or we hope we're going to be, I just want to enjoy every minute because, hey, I just turned 76. And whereas I keep ragging people, I said, I just completed my 76th year. I've begun my 77th, and they're like, oh my God, But I'm very much aware that this is my third act and maybe my last act and maybe my last role. I don't know. So I'm just grateful for every moment that I spend on this project and with these kids. I'm learning so much from them.
Oops, I need my glasses. When was the last time you practiced law? That was 1991. Back when I tried cases, we just prayed the horse and buggy got to court on time.
There was a film that I cared deeply about that when I saw how it turned out, really broke my heart. And I'm not going to get into names and all of that, but it was a part that I cared deeply about, that I prepared for a long time. And then when I saw what happened, it was just absolutely devastating. And I think that was one big moment where I felt, I don't think my heart can take this anymore. And as one gets older, I know my friend Jessica Lang and I have talked about this a lot, although she's had this wonderful renaissance, which I'm very happy for, is that we often choose roles that maybe aren't very mainstream, and not many people see the films when they come out. For me, it was playing smaller roles, supporting roles. It's always more difficult to job in because you're not part of the original process and with the other actors, and you come in late and you don't know anyone and you hit the ground running. I'm always have been from the very beginning of my career frustrated that we're often photographing something that's not ready to be photographed, especially in television and film, that the economics are such that they don't want to pay for a crew for an extra 2 weeks for you to go in. And so I often feel that I haven't had the opportunity to discover the real depth of the relationships that could be seen on screen and felt on screen in a much more meaningful, empathic way. When I first started out in studying back at school in the 60s at Southern Methodist, that I remember going into studying this craft very seriously. And it was almost like a religious feeling to me, that this was something worth doing, that we had the power to reach across time and generations to tell stories that are, it seems to me sometimes that we're a planet of storytellers. And now more than ever, the way that our stories are zooming around the globe with one another. And so I think that's the gist of what my frustrations have been. And also that because of my age and because of my, I'm not a beauty queen, and the types of roles that I'm offered or before now have been less interesting to me, and sort of stock characters. When I worked on American Horror Story, however, I had a fabulous time playing some of those roles, and also it was like being at a rep company, playing with the same actors, and so it hasn't always been that way. But I would say over the last few years, it's been more frustrating because of those.
You said Ryan Murphy has also been a part of this third act of your career. Tell me a little bit more about what it was like working with him, what it's been like to be a part of that huge franchise.
Well, I marvel at his genius. He's another Matlock. I remember being on set with him, and he was directing, and he was sitting backstage, and he was writing another episode, and he was just doing everything at once. I don't know how he does it all, but I wish I had gotten to know him better, because I think he was so incredibly busy and was between so many projects and working on so many different things, and of course his family, and so I wish that we had become closer friends over those years. But I'll always be indebted to him for giving me a job when I thought it was the summer of when I had breast cancer, and my show Harry's Law had been canceled, and I thought, well, what's next? I really felt that many things in my life were over. And then I saw my friend Jessica in the first season, and I said, hey, can you get me a meeting with this guy? I'd really like to go in. And it was very intimidating at first to meet with him. He's a very, I don't know how to say, he's got this bearing about him that's very, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know how to say what it's like. But I do know in that very first meeting that I had with him that this little kid that I have inside me that really loves to play. When he was talking about this character, just this little kid came jumping out of my body, running around the room, and I hadn't felt that in a long time. And I think he has tremendous heart, but it's not always easy to see. And I think that he puts his heart and soul into the characters that he writes. When I first read Matlock, the complexity of the character and the fact that she's invisible and she uses that to win cases, and there's a twist at the end that you just don't expect. At first, when I was reading it, I thought, oh, this is just another network procedural, and it's going to really grab me. And then I got toward the end, and everything turned on its head, and then playing with, when we did the pilot up in Toronto and working with Sky was just, I was astounded by her. And we had one scene in particular across the desk from one another, and I felt her power as an actor. And she's had every kind of experience in her life. We just had her wedding at a venue where she was a server at different events, and or going up when we were in Toronto, they shot Good Sam up there. So if you talk to her, there was just so many things coming full circle in her life, and it's been such a treat to see that, and I can't wait for people to see her in this part. I'm so excited. Just to, I can count on the fingers of one hand how many other actresses I've loved playing with over the years, and she's right up there. We love doing scenes together, and it really shows in the work, and our work has improved as actors because of this connection that we've built up as these characters, and now more in our personal lives as well. And the kids are adorable. They're just, I take such pleasure in hanging out with them. And Leah's mom visited the set the other day, and I got to meet with her, and it's just been restorative.
That's really nice. It sounds like you've really taken on a bit of a mentorship role for especially these female actresses, and offered them some advice. I'd love to hear, throughout the course of your career, co-stars, people in the industry who have offered you advice, and what that was like.
Yes, there was, way back in my theater days, there was a man who talked to me about the business, and he said, you have to have a head like a bullet and a heart like a baby. And that's always been good advice. It's been hard to accomplish from time to time. And the press hasn't always been kind. I tell you, one person who really was a bit of a mentor for me was Dustin Hoffman. I met him in New York through Warren Beatty, who had come to see us in a play. And then I met Dustin, and he was casting Straight Time in LA. And I had moved out to visit my sister and do a play here at what became the Geffen. And so he actually gave me my first speaking role in a film that Ulu Grossbar directed. And I know this happened, but maybe it's just in my memory. It seems like we were on a completely dark soundstage, and there was a camera there. And I remember hearing in his voice, which I can't imitate, but he said, "There's the camera." And when we did a table scene together, I was very nervous when they turned the camera on me, and he was sitting next to me, and I said, "I'm really scared. All of a sudden, I just feel like an apartment building with all the doors and windows closing up." And he said, "Can you hear Owen setting up the shot?" And Owen was the DP, Owen Roisman, one of the greats. And I said, "No." He said, "Well, listen." And so I started listening, and the minute I relaxed, he said, "That's it." And he is really an actor's actor. I remember when we did Dick Tracy, I had a tiny part in it, tiny, and I think he had won for Rain Man. It was the year that he won for Rain Man, and he had been up all night partying, and then he had to go in and make up for I don't know how many hours for Bubbles, or I don't know if that's the name of his character, and then he's on set in between shots learning his lines for Merchant of Venice. And I'm just looking at this guy, think he just loves it. That just feeds him. And I just don't know if I've ever had that complete devotion or just some kind of passion that he has inside for it. I think I do but he's just something else. And he really, I guess we did a movie not long ago together, maybe a few years ago. It was great to see him again. And also working with Jessica Tandy was the same thing, to see someone her age at 84, and we did Fried Green Tomatoes, and how it was a life force for her, and how youthful she looked when we shot in a nursing home down in Georgia. She looked like she was 16 years old, because that, gave her the delight always at the aspect of a new character. For the last 10 years, I've been the national spokesperson for the Lymphatic Education and Research Network. I had breast cancer in 2012, and I developed a disease called lymphedema, which affects approximately 10 million Americans every year. And I developed it in both arms, and it happens when lymph nodes are damaged, either through cancer, through trauma, wounds, anything, you name it, where the lymph nodes that remove the lymph throughout the human body and toxins, where those lymph nodes no longer exist, then the lymph backs up. It's called edema, which is swelling. And I didn't know anything about it, and met the CEO of the Lymphatic Education and Research Network. Was astounded at how many people suffer from it. And I'd never been a spokesperson before. And I found out that doctors in 4 years of medical school spend 15 to 30 minutes on the entire lymphatic system. So very little is known about it. And I think a lot of that's changing. But more importantly is that it's progressive. It can't be reversed. I recently met a woman who has it in her legs. Her legs are terribly swollen. She's in the 3rd stage. Her doctor didn't know what it was. She didn't have it diagnosed in time. And now she's trying to stay out of a wheelchair. We now have gone from a tiny little organization to being able to have a lymphatic commission at the National Institutes of Health. We have a grant from the CDC. We're trying to raise awareness for the military. And I've made friends with so many fascinating people, like Dr. Mingwei Cheng in Taiwan, who's the father of lymphatic surgery, and Dhruv Singhal, who is at Beth Israel Deaconess and who does microsurgery now. In some instances, they're able to do a mastectomy and reconnect the lymph glands and connections through microsurgery. And Dr. Stan Roxon up at Stanford. But more than anything is that I've been able to use my intelligence for something in the real world to help real people, by going and speaking to different organizations like the Society for Breast Cancer Surgeons and so on. And now, over the last 10 years, we've been able to create around the globe what we call centers of excellence at different university hospitals and well-known hospitals here and there, where we can now say to someone who sent us an email 10 years ago, help, 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 help me in gigantic letters, we can now say to someone, oh, like this woman I was telling you about, oh yes, there's someone near you and so, or you can find a therapist here, or because we've lobbied in DC every year, and our congresswoman in Connecticut, Rosa DeLauro, was instrumental in helping us get awareness raised. It's the awareness that we've got to continue, because as I said, this woman that I met recently was not able to. She went to her own physician who'd never heard of it. And so that's been an unexpected gift for me, to be able to help other people use my name, which I always kind of thought this business was kind of silly from time to time. What are you doing playing dress up? But finally to be able to use my notoriety for something worthwhile in the real world has been incredibly rewarding.